All right, we got the first ever in-person interview. I appreciate you coming on, man.
You already
First one ever in person.
appreciate you inviting me, bro.
Yeah, this is my guy Boo. Boo is somebody that I met back in college. We were both athletes, both have kind of a similar journey, but just connected based off of our passion and things that we liked. And we had a mutual friend that we really that we both consider one of our best friends. But it's been cool being friends with Boo for all this time because we kind of got to see each other come up a little bit. You know what I mean? We got to see each other figure out life at the same point that we all like at the same time. Because if you think about it, at college, I mean, at least for me, I kind of felt like I had it figured out in a way. You know, like I know what I'm gonna do. I know what I want to be when I grow up. And then you graduate, and then things change. You start to figure out like, oh, this is what I'm doing. This is where I'm going. And then there's been points where we've had talks, and we kind of like I know I bounced ideas off of you or things that I was doing and just taking in your feedback. I've always appreciated that. You know what I mean? So it's a pleasure to have you on. But do me a favor, man. Introduce yourself and tell a little bit about who you are.
Nickname is Boo. Um, Full name is Valcone Barrett. Some of you guys know me as Val as well. So essentially, I grew up in Stamford, Connecticut, with my mom, my dad, and sister. I would say I was like a lower middle class family. So it really taught me a lot from a younger age. Having my dad, who always had like 3 jobs. My mom always was a banker. She just retired recently last year. Love you, mom. Shout out to you.
Shout out, Ma.
Yes, sir.
Always.
So growing up, I was able to. I have a very big family. Like I probably never even met half of my family. I got family in Jamaica, in Florida, in Canada, in England. So just being able to have that supporting figures in my life has brought me to where I am today. But of course, like Matt said, coming from like the ground up to where I am today, I never even thought I would be in this position. So I'm just glad to be, on this platform to, give some knowledge and give some advice to the younger generation, let them know like they can be whatever they want to be in life, as well. So,
That's dope. That's
Matt,
dope.
again, appreciate you having
Of
me
course,
on the
man.
pack.
Soccer player,
Yeah.
right? College soccer player, but obviously played at D1. But the cool thing about soccer that I'm interested in, and I definitely want to tap into it, is the mindset when you're going to play college. So for me with baseball, it was you go to college and you're trying to get drafted, and everyone on the baseball team has a goal to get drafted, and then you go to the MLB, you go to the minors. Where I feel like with soccer, it's such a worldwide sport, and I feel like, at least from my opinion, there's so many opportunities overseas. There's so many different avenues I feel like you could go. So from the young age, I'm sure you started playing because you just love the game,
Right.
right? But tell me a little bit about you as young, but then going to play D1. What was your goal? What was your vision when you were going to Fairleigh Dickinson here in New Jersey? What was that like for you? What was that 16, 17-year-old Boo thinking back then?
Yeah, so I mean, 16, 17-year-old Boo was definitely trying to, play at Division 1 level. Again, in Stamford, Connecticut, wasn't even many black, people playing soccer, during that time.
Yeah,
So I was actually trying to be the first like black person that I knew of, that would get a Division 1 scholarship,
wow.
specifically for soccer.
Yeah,
So I would probably say that I was probably one of the first ones to actually do it,
yeah,
especially at the D1 level. But even before that, like I said, grew up in Stanford, only black kid really playing soccer.
yeah,
I'm a Jamaican culture, so Jamaican culture, you either play soccer or you run track. Obviously, we know like the Usain Bolts,
yeah.
best
True,
runners in the world.
true. Yep.
Um, but as a black person in Stanford, Connecticut, all the people that look like me played, basketball or football.
Hmm.
So they would always, when there was times where to chill and hang out, I was playing soccer because I was already playing at a very competitive level from the age of like 10 years old. So when I couldn't make these events around with friends and things like that, they used to make fun of me like, you're black, like why you playing
Well,
soccer,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that actually drove me to want to even make it in soccer even further,
Yeah,
because I wanted to prove to them like, yeah, I'm black, but at the end of the day, like I'm good at this sport, and this is what's going to carry me to do further things in life.
yeah.
I would say probably around like 15, 16 years old. That's when I started getting recruited through soccer for playing through a club called Beachside Soccer Club, which they had the networks with coaches and things like that. So I
Yeah,
went to a tournament, New Jersey, and performed there, and then so I had some college visits, and then ended up committing to Fairleigh Dickinson University,
that's tough.
where I got a 50% scholarship
Yeah,
for athletics and then 50% for for academics.
What did that do for you? What did that mean for you when you got the 50 from athletics? Like, what did that mean to the family?
Oh man, it was amazing because my family, you know, they fought so hard for me, just doing so many different things. They sacrificed so much.
Uh,
Again, my dad was working 3 jobs. There was times where he would be leaving like a security job to come in and watch a game, or my mom would like leave work, you know, to be able to bring me to practices and things like that.
yeah,
So for me to get a scholarship and to Fairleigh Dickinson University, it meant the world to me.
yeah,
My mom would smile from ear to ear.
yeah,
My family, again, was so big, they always looked up to me.
yeah.
So I was, again, the first in my family to get an athletic scholarship or probably any type of scholarship to college as
Yeah,
well. So it was like the first stepping stone for me to like really take the throne
yeah. There's
and
something
focus
to
on my
that
family.
too. Yeah, that's huge because I think the other side of that. So you mentioned you were the first one athletic scholarship
Yeah.
in your family, right? And for me too. Did you feel on the other side? Like, did you feel pressure? Did you feel pressure to handle business? Did you feel pressure to kind of live up to that scholarship, like the rest of the family? Not putting pressure on
Right.
you, but just naturally kind of come with it, or you like, all right, that's just part of it. I'm just gonna keep going.
I think that was just part of it.
Yeah.
I'm not somebody who I really feel like a lot of pressure's on my back. Like
Okay.
I'm somebody, even if pressure's on, you would never even know. You know, I'm very like calm and cool at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a lot of pressure. Once I got there, I wanted to, you know, that's the first step is just getting there, getting that scholarship. But then after that, I wanted to be able to get onto the field even as a freshman. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I think that's a freshman and you're playing on that team. Like you just want to gain minutes.
Yeah.
Some people are just happy with just being on the team. You
Right.
know, but you know, I was able to get a little playing time. You know,
Mhm.
here and there. But the biggest thing that I got out of that college situation was the friend group that I have today. You know, I
Yeah.
have a solid 8 to 10 friends that I could call
Yeah.
my brothers and family as well.
Yeah.
So you
That's
know
huge.
that was a huge thing because again, being at the age I'm at now, we're 36 years old. Um, Having friends and family is the most important thing. I think you can relate to that as
Absolutely.
well. You know, you have your family, you got your children.
Yeah.
Those are the things that are most important. So I was able to get that from the age of 18 and carry that through.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Yeah.
my life right now.
Not to go backwards, but I wanted to touch on it. So you mentioned, dad's working 3 jobs, mom's doing whatever she has to do. Were you aware of that in the moment, or are you more aware of it now that you're older, looking back at it?
So I think I was aware of that as a kid,
Yeah.
like even 8, 9 years old.
Yeah.
Again, there was times where my dad couldn't even make a school play,
Right.
school performance. He
Right.
would say like, "Hey, I'm gonna try and get there," but he couldn't get there, and I would be sad,
Mhm.
directly like after the show, and sometimes my mom would have to like console me.
Yeah.
Um, but then when I hear my dad come and apologize to me when he would get home, it's just like I had to work to be able to provide for the family.
Yeah. Yeah.
These are things that you're gonna have to do as a man.
Yeah.
So I really taken those key words in as a young kid, and now I'm able to really understand. Like he was again sacrificing, not
Yeah.
being able to see me doing these fun things and extracurriculars
Yeah.
because he was grinding to get where he needed to be at. But also, again, that's kind of helped me where I'm at today as well
Yeah.
because I have a hustle mentality just like my dad as well.
Yeah. And then what about, were you able to take that and in your sports career? Were you able to take some of the things that you learned from those situations and those instances where your dad was doing what he had to do? Were you able to translate that to on the field, or getting on the field, or when you first get to college and the work ethic? Was any of that transferable for you?
For sure. I think you can ask any teammates, any friends on. I've never complained at all.
Yeah.
If we gotta continue running because that's what the coach said, like I'm gonna be doing that.
Yeah.
In the summertime, especially like once we actually got to college, I was always out on that field. After work. Again, not many kids are probably working at the age of like 15, 16.
Right.
I had my first job, 13 years old. Obviously not legal,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
But
13 years old, like in the back
doing
of a
good.
truck, just
Yeah.
dumping out dirt, like on construction sites and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was just never one to really complain. I just put my head down and just grinded, and either waited for my time to come, or obviously I'm gonna earn that.
Yeah. That's big, and I think for a lot of athletes, I think it's important to, just understand where you are in the moment, right? Like, I know for me, a lot of times I felt overwhelmed, and I was thinking a lot about, all right, I got to do this and this and this to hit this goal, or like I got to get drafted, or and then I would catch myself in the moment and remember, like, what you're experiencing. You're playing Division 1 sports. You're playing with the best of the best, and like you keep touching on, you have a network of people, friends that are there that you spend I don't think you can really account for how much time you spend with each other until you're on a D1 team. You know,
Right.
like you see, for us, these guys every single day. Those are people that you live with, you travel with. I mean, you see them every day. So to be who you are and to trust yourself is hard, in my opinion, to do it. But what was your goal? So now you're at FDU, right? You got the D1. What was your freshman mind? What were you thinking? Like, what was the plan? Where were you going?
So honestly, I was just trying to just play as much as possible. Like that
Yeah,
was my goal. Obviously, I love the camaraderie. Again, having a close knit group of friends. But at the end of the day, for me playing soccer from 4 years old up until that age, you know, I would say by like the time you're a junior, you kind of know like, all right, do you want to go pro or are you gonna get into the real world,
yeah,
within like a year or
yeah,
less. So because I had played soccer for so long, like of course I wanted to go that professional route. Um, again, you asked that question earlier, like what is the route to get to being a professional like in the United States,
yeah,
so I already knew just watching college soccer kind of growing up and just kind of knowing the game that realistically playing in the MLS Major League Soccer was damn near impossible
hmm
unless you went to the biggest schools in the country.
yeah, yeah.
And most of those bigger schools were in the ACC, so the Dukes,
Right,
the North Carolinas. If
right.
you look at the draft back in 2000 to 2010,
hmm
the top 25 kids are all going to be basically from the same schools.
Right, yeah,
Again, those same schools I just mentioned. Whereas when I look nowadays, there's starting to be some smaller schools being tossed in there, but
yeah,
that wasn't the case when we were coming up.
yeah,
So Fairleigh Dickinson, anybody from Fairleigh Dickinson, realistically, was not going to
right,
get drafted from the MLS.
yeah,
So, I did pursue the route of going overseas and going into England through a connect that I had that was playing in England, playing for Sheffield Wednesday. His name was Giles Coke.
okay,
So he kind of got me a trial with Northampton Town. I went over there for 6 months, and then I ended up getting cut. Again, that was a tough time for me,
yeah, yeah,
but it was definitely a learning lesson because I actually got to learn the business side of things at that point,
yeah,
which you have no idea about really when you're playing college sports. You don't
right,
think about like what are owners and chairmen, like how they're making these decisions.
right,
So I was able to sit down with the owner. He's breaking down to me, essentially why I'm getting cut.
right.
It was basically down to me and two other
That's
people.
huge. Yeah,
I was only one from America. The other two other guys were from England, 18 years old. I was 21 at that point.
right.
So he basically just broke down to me like, you're from America. We would have to be paying for a visa. You're 3 or 4 years older than them.
Yeah,
They're a little bit younger, and they're from England already.
yeah,
So we would rather invest in this player because of a younger age type of situation.
yeah,
So that was like obviously heartbreaking at that time.
yeah,
I remember staying in England for even like an extra month and literally just doing nothing. I didn't want to come back to America
yeah,
because of the embarrassment of things.
yeah. That becomes real. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's I mean, that moment though, looking back on it, getting to sit down and just hear, like, I mean, it's just cutthroat. You
Yep.
know what I mean? It's just like it. You have two things against your American age, and sometimes it just comes down to that. You
Yep.
know, and I think I can relate to that with when I started coaching college, and then I think it took me like a year to adjust to specifically just recruiting because I'd recruit kids that I liked or I thought like personality could fit, and that didn't work.
Uh-huh.
I really had to cut throat down and do it, and then I was open. And I'm like looking back at some of the decisions that coaches made when we played, and some players that we lost, and it put in perspective. Even at the NCAA, it's purely business,
For
man. It's
sure.
purely business, and you look at these coaches; their livelihood. This is how they make a living.
Right.
They have to win, or they
Mm-hmm.
lose their job. And I think young student athletes should really be aware of that, and I don't know if accept is the right term, but that's what you're up against.
Right.
And sometimes it's just that. Sometimes it's just that. So once you're in England, that happens. So for me, I didn't have an opportunity like that. Once college was over, it was over. And then I remember that feeling of like, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? Did that hit you at that moment, or did you kind of know, like,
No, I mean at that moment, that was probably the hardest moment in my life, right? Trying to figure out, all right, what is the next step for myself?
mm,
I didn't have any networking. Again, I was just playing sports from the ages of from 4 years old. So all I ever knew was just soccer, soccer, soccer.
yeah,
Again, when my friends were outside, I was at soccer.
yeah,
When friends were going to like YMCA parties, I was at soccer.
yeah,
So I had to basically start from the ground up,
right,
right? So I got my master's degree at Fairleigh Dickinson in sports management. So from that point, start to make little connections, but then it came down to, all right, I graduated from grad school. I had to move back to Connecticut.
right,
So now I'm back in Connecticut with no job.
Yeah.
right? Because I haven't really made those networking connections yet.
Yeah.
So I actually started working at Napa Auto Parts.
Okay.
Only reason why I even got that job was because my cousin was a general manager.
Right.
So I was making minimum wage. I think minimum wage back then was like $6.75.
Yeah.
So my paycheck after, a week was like $200.
Right.
That was monumental because it taught me how to save money.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't spending $5 going to the movies with my friends at the age of 22 years old.
Right.
$5 now is like you can't even buy like a biscuit. But,
right. Yeah. It's way different.
It really taught me how to save tons of money. And then I kind of carried on my dad's traits where I was working at Napa.
Yeah.
Then I started getting into soccer coaching.
Right.
With Stanford Hurricanes. And then from there, they opened up Chelsea Piers, which is in New York City. Yep. They opened one up in Connecticut. I started off doing scoreboarding,
right,
$10 an hour, just keeping the scores of the games for the soccer games. I was able to talk to people that were working for like NBC, Deloitte, and just started making connections with them. I just really started my own hustling mentality with, yes, was out the house at like 5 a.m. and not getting back in the house until like midnight, 1 a.m. just from working 3 different jobs. So it almost like I was in my dad's shoes again.
Like running it back.
I'm actually in it myself.
Yeah.
But just the network, and I was just able to put myself out there a lot more in those 3 spaces.
Right.
And eventually got it down to like just being in one job.
Right. And then how transferable was the skills that it took to be a D1 player? Because there's a lot of work that goes into it. Right. And I don't want to skip over it. I mean, you guys were successful too. Yeah. You had a good team, which is a whole nother level. I mean, for me, I was lucky. I started at one school at St. John's. We were a really good team, and I went to LIU, and we weren't. We were middle of the road, and I got to see what 2 programs look like who put a good product on the field, and then one that doesn't always put up. And it's all about preparation and time you put in, and the connection and the players and all that. But I can tell you, our coaches ran those programs the same. The problem was the players buying into it.
Right.
So coming from a winning program, having the success that you had, what were you able to connect to when you started to get into the working world that was able to kind of propel you and able to keep growing and keep changing and keep getting where you are now? Was there certain skills that just like, all right, I can rely on this. I can use this.
Yeah. I would say number one, I always joke with my friends on my resume. I used to put, I have a hustle mentality, right? But hard work is key as well.
Yeah.
Communication, obviously being on a team, we're just always communicating every single second you're out on that field. It doesn't even matter if you're on the bench, you're still communicating. At practice you're communicating.
True.
So that was like a key thing. Teamwork, obviously, is essential, in any professional environment that you are in.
Yeah.
So because doing these things, again, playing on a sports team from 4 years old up until that point, it's natural for me.
Right.
So even up until this day in my job that I am now, teamwork is still my number one thing. I have 20 staff members that I'm a direct report for.
Yeah.
And my number one thing is making sure everybody's seen and heard. I'm communicating all the time, whether it's through emails, whether it's through WhatsApp messages, phone calls, consistent feedback, right? That's something that we got from our coaches all the time. If you didn't get feedback from coaches, something is most likely wrong, right? It's not a good coach, most likely.
For sure.
So I'm able to take those learning experience and apply that into my current job, even right now.
Yeah.
Just with all those key aspects I mentioned.
That's huge. Yeah, I want to get into that a little bit because, I mean, we relate a lot in the sports, so we have our stories, but I'm interested in entrepreneurship. I mean, for me, if someone asked me about you, I would say that'd be one of the things that I say. Now, similar to me, it sounds like your parents both worked 9-to-5 jobs or something of that stature. Like my parents were 9-to-5. They weren't entrepreneurs. That just wasn't it.
Yeah.
When did you know, like, I want to start diving into other ways to make money or other ways to personal brand and get myself out there? When did that switch happen?
Yeah. I mean, I think that the big switch happened again. Seeing my dad hustle, I was always trying to make money.
Mm-hmm.
I used to sell T-shirts in high school. When white tees were out.
Yeah.
We were wearing size 4X, 5X.
One, yeah.
I was selling those from out my locker.
Yeah.
I would buy stuff on eBay and then sell it. PlayStations, jerseys, sneakers, just do all those type of things. So I already always kind of had like a hustle mentality.
Mm-hmm.
But then how long am I trying to do that for? Not for too long. I want to make it actually, not to say that those things were illegal. I can legally do those things, but I wanted to take it to the next level. 2017, close friend of mine, Cesar, we actually went and spoke to a real estate guru from New Jersey, actually.
Mm-hmm.
He had like, paid a certain amount of money to go and talk to this person. And as a close friend, because I know him since 13 years old, he was just like, hey, I want you to come with me.
Mhm.
You don't got to give me any money or anything like that. So I literally sat in with this meeting while this real estate guru is giving us tons of knowledge. I think a year later, my friend Cesar had bought a property, and I was still in a position where I didn't have enough money financially to do that.
Mhm.
But I took in that knowledge, and then was able to apply that. So
Yeah.
then I was actually able to buy a property in the midst of the pandemic in 2020.
Big ups on that. Yeah. That's
So
huge.
while a lot of people were struggling, again, I was blessed to be able to buy a property at that point.
Yeah.
So I have a 2-family house in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and now I have another condo in Norwalk, Connecticut. I just bought, in July as well. So I think that change really happened, like I said, with that real estate guru, with my friend.
Yeah.
And just was listening to what he was saying. Literally, I think I asked maybe like one question.
Yeah. So that was the intent on the first one. You went in that I'm going to buy this as an investment property. This is what I want to do with it. And then that, from your conversation with that guru, that got the wheels turning. That's huge. So that's something that's not new to anybody, right? I think we hear all the time, like, wealth is built, and so many people point to real estate. That's a big plunge, man. That makes a lot of people nervous. That's a big overhead. That's a big put down. What was that moment like? Like, did you know, like, I just did it? I just bought our property? Was it like that?
Yeah. So it was even, the process was even a little bit harder.
Yeah.
And at some points, like, man, I don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Because my mom and my dad had they did buy a property in the same town in Bridgeport. If you don't know Bridgeport is a underrepresented community, low income for the most part. So they bought a real estate property, and they ended up having to file bankruptcy.
Wow.
So when I'm talking to my mom now, again, my mom is a banker, retired banker. She's just like, I don't think you buying real estate is gonna be the best thing, because, like, look what happened to me and your dad getting filed for bankruptcy. But again, with my mentality of just like, don't quit, don't give up, I just kept pushing and pushing, and I was just like, you know what, Mom, like, that happened to you, unfortunately, but if it happens to me, it happens to me. But I'm not gonna not take this chance.
That's big.
Because look at now, I have that property. That property is basically gonna be for, like, my children. That's a gold mine right there. That interest rate, pandemic, I got it at 2.25%. We don't even want to talk about what the interest rate is today.
Yeah, you're not gonna see that for a while. Yeah. That's huge. And to have your mom, I mean, fear is a big thing in a lot of decisions that we make. I mean, in business, fear is huge. Like, what am I gonna put some of the assets into, and how am I gonna grow? So to hear directly from your mom, be careful, don't do that. That must have been hard, though, to kind of overcome and say, you know what, I'm still gonna push through and do it. So where were you living when you bought that property? How were you doing that?
So when I bought that property, I was living in Harlem.
Okay.
I had just been living in New York at that point for 2 years.
Right.
So I went from living in, like, the Bronx, like the Fordham University area, and then I moved to Harlem to be closer to work.
Okay.
Because I was working in Manhattan at that point.
Oh, you were okay.
So I was in an apartment.
Yeah.
Me and my roommate, which is actually another close friend from Stanford, because he was working in the city.
Yeah.
At that point. So we were just living in 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment in Harlem, just 146 7th Ave.
Just doing it.
So, we were just out there, and then ended up finding a property.
Yeah.
And then just went for it. I literally just saw this property. I didn't do a bunch of research. I just saw it, punched some numbers really quick, spoke to a real estate agent, and then kind of just took off from there.
Forward. Yeah. I think that's good. No, paralysis by analysis, right? Like over analyzing, overdoing, just pulling the trigger and going for it, and it shows that it ended up working out. Is that something that you plan on still? Like, you're just gonna still try to invest, and you always have your eyes on properties out there?
Yeah, I mean, my goal is now, because I'm in a position now I want to be able to get, like, one property a year.
Yeah.
Like, that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
But even now, I want to do bigger projects. Like, my goal now is I want to try and, build like a 4 to 6 unit condominium or apartment, apartment complex.
Right.
Like, that's the levels that I want to get to.
Yeah.
So, now it's like, I want to try and get investors to get involved and things like that.
Yeah.
Where I don't have to use my own money.
Right.
So, like, that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, that's huge.
But if it doesn't happen, it's not like I'm gonna be upset, because at the end of the day, I know where I've come from, and for me to even get to this point of owning 2 properties, is like a huge step. Not many people can say that.
Not at all.
So I'm happy with that as well.
And you touched on it. I want to touch on it. So Cesar, a close friend.
Yeah.
People you played with, close friends. Tell me a little bit about who you surround yourself with. I mean, because that's, think about it. You're one of your best friends jump started a real estate investment bug in you.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish everyone could say that, but I think a big thing of success is surrounding yourself with people who push you.
Absolutely.
People like, and that's one thing I admire about us. Like I'm completely comfortable calling you and talking about something, whether it's business or whatever, personal life, and just I respect and I trust the feedback, and I feel no judgment. I feel, and I know you'll give me the honest truth, and whatever I do with it's on me, and that's why I try to surround myself with. Tell me a little bit about who you surround yourself with and why you think that's important.
Yeah, so I mean, the people I surround myself with, again, it's a solid 8 to 10.
Yeah.
I don't want to start calling too many names and then forget because there's so many people.
Yeah, yeah.
But everybody that I surround myself around has good families, right? But loyal, trustworthy. So, and these are the exact type of characters that I hold. You know, not to talk about like tattoos, but one of my tattoos is like love and loyalty,
Yeah.
because that's what makes up, my characteristic, my who I am today.
Yeah.
So everybody that I'm around, I know when I'm around them, it's just smiles, it's just laughs, it's just good stories, it's good memories.
Yeah.
It's seeing their kids. It's being able to see their mom, their dad. We used to sleep on the couch. We used to sleep in floors.
Yeah.
In these in families' houses and friends' houses. So I'm also learning from them.
Right.
They're learning from me as well.
Right.
As we get older and older, I think that's going to happen more and more.
Yeah.
Just the more that we start to take on, the more knowledge that we start to get. But I appreciate every single friend for different reasons as well.
For sure.
Like there's some friends who I can call to like just banter with. There's other friends I can talk to like about real estate. There's other friends I can talk to like, hey, like how did you meet up with this group of networking? I know you reached out to me like, hey, I would love to connect with a real estate group of people that you're in with, and like bring you into those type of things. So I appreciate all my friends from top to bottom, for all different reasons.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I know that me being around them, it's never really going to be a negative situation that's happening.
Right.
And I think that's important, right? You don't want to be around negative vibes.
Right.
There's already so much going on in the world as it is. So that's how I kind of like surround myself around my friends.
Yeah.
And they're able to carry me through tough times as well.
Yeah.
I can pick up the phone and call certain people because I know that they're gonna give me like a dead honest answer and be real with me, which I think is key. You want to surround yourself around people that are gonna be real, not fake. You can go find fake people on the street if you want to.
Yeah,
So.
You want that real. Now, have you ever had an instance where you had to make a decision, somebody you were a friend with, but you didn't feel it was best for what your vision was or where you're trying to go, and you had to kind of slim it down a little bit? Have you made those hard decisions?
For sure. I never thought honestly that would actually happen to me because of the type of person that I am.
Mm-hmm.
Again, just being a super loyal person, an honest person. But there's been, especially from like college, there's been like about 2 or 3 people, we don't communicate anymore, but if I was to see them face to face, it's still gonna be love. I'm not talking, crazy behind their back or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it happens. It's a part of life.
Yes.
It's a part of growing up. It's a part of maturity. Maybe those 2 or 3 people weren't bringing anything to me that can help me, and probably vice versa.
Yeah.
So I don't really think about that too much in regards to like, oh man, I lost like 2 people. Again, I'm blessed to have 8 to 10 people.
Yeah.
Some people can't count 5 solid people they can really rely on.
Yeah, for sure.
So
it
happens, but
it does, and that's a hard decision. I think the earlier though that you maturely make that decision, because ultimately you got to do what's right for yourself, and that doesn't mean, like you keep saying, like you could be loyal and that's good. So it doesn't mean going behind people's backs or doing anything shady. It just means making the right decisions for yourself, because I just look at it as it's where I get my energy from.
Right.
I can get off the phone with some of my close friends and feel re-energized, ready to tackle on, ready to keep going. And then I had friends who I would feel drained or I would waste time. Like I that's one thing that I'm big on is time. I don't want to waste time, So if someone's doing something that is not within my values, I have no hard feelings, and it fits their life, that's fine. But yeah, I think who you surround yourself with is key. I think the earlier you start to pay attention to that, the better, And I always try to recommend our athletes that we talk to, I say it, the way I say it is, if there's upperclassmen who are doing what you want to do, just get in their pocket, be with them, follow them, see what they do, just follow, to learn the way of the land. So for you now, what are you doing now? Where are you at professionally now?
So right now I'm working in an elementary school in the Bronx as a community school director. I've been in this position. This is year 3 in the school for me.
Okay.
So essentially, like my role is to provide as much resources for our families. Again, I'm in underrepresented community, all black and brown children for the most part. It's like 98% of the kids are black and brown.
Yeah.
You know, their parents, most of them aren't working and things like that. Again, I was blessed to have both parents in my life. Both of them were working their entire life,
Yeah.
and there were still tough times.
Yeah.
So I come into my job every single day energized to help out the families and help out the students.
Yeah.
Whether it's me finding resources for them to receive free vision screening, to receive free, health screenings. I provide year-round food pantries for them, clothing pantries for them. Um, I host field day events for them.
Yeah.
I'm making sure we get the bouncy houses and the snow cone machines. I want to make sure that they're receiving some memorable moments that they can look back and be like, oh, elementary school was fun, even though the neighborhood I might live in might not be the best, right? And they'll be able to realize that when they get older, they might think where they live right now is just like a common theme around the United States or in New York,
Right.
which we know isn't the case.
Right.
You can go to Midtown and it's 50
Yeah.
floor buildings and
Yeah.
people are living luxurious,
Yeah.
but they might not even know that because they're just used to where they're from.
Yeah.
So it's a joy for me to come in every single day, honestly, and just be able to help out the students and the families in the area.
That's a role that I don't even know if you could value that role. I was lucky enough. Boo invited me to graduation this past year, and I was lucky enough to speak there. But I'll tell you what, like my talk part in my mind was the shortest part. It was watching every single kid come up. It was watching the teachers, how much they actually cared. I mean, literally shedding tears, watching kids walk across the stage. It was seeing some of the kids and what it meant to them to come across that stage, how excited they were, the families, how excited they were.
Yep.
I would have never gotten exposed to that. Well, I shouldn't say never, but it wasn't what I expected in a good way. And I don't know if I would have been exposed to it if it wasn't for you inviting me down there and talking to it. And then seeing how much of the world is at their fingertips still, right? And how important it is to keep them going the right way. When probably outside those doors, there's a lot of bad decisions that can be made right outside those doors, So, but when we were inside the school, and all I mean by that is like life goes on in New York City. If if you're not from this area, New York City is one of a kind. It's one of a kind. But inside that school, it was awesome. And there was a ton of inspiration everywhere. And I think what you're providing for kids, I think that's the kind of stuff that we need to highlight more because it's opportunity, right? And I know there's a lot of opinions on this, and I'd love to hear yours. I don't know if everyone has the same opportunity in this country, right? And I think some people might disagree with that, and that's okay. I think it really comes down to what you're exposed to, and that's why I was grateful to even get exposed to seeing the school. But tell me some based on like that, the opportunities. Do you see changes in certain kids, or do you see kids, and they're young, take advantage of the good opportunities that they have where you say, and that the fact that they got to do this, that might really help them. That might really continue to progress them. Do you see that?
For sure.
Yeah.
There's kids, every time I provide them something, because I do like attendance initiatives for the kids. They know that like I'm the one that is providing the snacks, the chips, free tickets to Yankees games, NYCFC games.
Yeah.
So there will be kids literally run up to me like thanking me. Their
Yeah.
families are coming up and thanking me for these things.
Yeah.
And of course that feels rewarding to be able to provide that. Again, it's not like I was being provided those things, even coming up in a more more represented community in Connecticut. But it's just great to know that these people are almost like depending on me, right?
Yeah.
Families getting these tickets, they're able to give it to their kids.
Yeah.
So even though they didn't have to pay a penny out of their pocket, they're being able to create a memory with their child because I'm able to reach out and make these connections with organizations to be able to provide, whether it is, like I said, tickets, food, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So it's that part of it is like probably the most rewarding part is, again, being able to families to like do more for their students.
Yeah.
With them just asking questions at the end of the day.
Right.
I'll say the one thing that stands out to me, again, even though Connecticut is right next to New York, it's a totally different. And the one thing that really stands out to me is the quote: "If you can make it out of New York, you can make it anywhere."
Yeah.
I think that is key. If you just come into the Bronx and you walk around for 20 minutes, some people will be fearful in those 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
For me, because I'm a part of this community.
Yeah.
I walk around like, what changes can I make here?
Yeah.
Right? I go to the bodegas, the delis. Like, I'm talking to these people. Like, is there ways I can hang up flyers?
Yeah.
Can we do a block party?
Yeah.
Can you provide things for the block party?
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of go around the neighborhood. It's like, all right, what changes can I make? Just being able to use my body and myself to again provide for the community.
Yeah.
So
how can we continue to change that? Like, is it lack of resources? Is it lack of care? Like, where do you think, if somebody with a passion to help people and help the next generation? Because again, I know we're talking about it, but I think if, like you just said, if you go in there and walk around, it's eye opening, right? And I'm someone like I'm not like a fearful person. It's just amazing to me that New York City is so big and there's so many people and there's so many opportunities, good and bad, out there every single day. And then you watch these kids walk in with the biggest smiles on their face, right? And it's like, that's their world. That's all that they know. But the fearful part is at some point, each one of them is going to have a decision where they either go right or left, right? And you want to, like, I feel like what you guys are doing is you're just giving them the good resources just to go the right way. Just keeping it, because you can't, everyone makes mistakes. So you don't know what they're going to do. But how can
you can't save them all? Can't save them all.
Yeah, you can't. But how can, like, what would you do? Like, how can we continue to change, or what do they need? Because in my opinion, I think what you're doing, what I like a lot, is like someone like me, and I'm not just speaking, like, you bring somebody in, they get to hear somebody else talk. They get to hear someone that doesn't look like them talk, or you get them to a Yankee game or an experience, and they get to see some of the world that way. Is it more of that, do you think? Is it more resources? Like, what do you think will help make a change?
I think we just need more people, not just in New York, like in the world. Just, my passion is to help out the person next to me.
Yeah.
Like, nobody taught me this, going to church is what kind of helped that out, especially as a kid. And, somebody like my mom, who I consider just an angelic figure. I've never heard her say or do anything negative. She's always just telling me, help people out as a kid. If you hear somebody that a kid is hungry and you got a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, give him half, give her half. So the way I look at it is the only thing that's going to really help is more people actually wanting to do it. More people putting the person almost next to them first, to get them to where they need to be. So obviously, like, I'm going to look out for myself first at the end of the day. But if I have something to spare, I'm going to give it to that person. I'm not going to hold on to it to give it to, like, my family, unless they were actually in a serious need as well. But I just think you have to be fully committed to trying to help out. You have to almost have the passion to help out, like, humans in general. I think nowadays it's just everybody's looking out for themselves. It's just me. During the pandemic. P. How can I get this money for myself? I haven't heard many people say, even at that old PPP thing during the pandemic, most people were doing that illegally, right? Using it to their advantage. I don't hear much stories of how they took that money and they bought people in need stuff, right? They probably took that money and they were buying Lamborghinis, they were buying property. Again, that's more for themselves. I know if I was in that situation, I'm spending that money on the person that actually is in need, because it's going to come back full circle at some point. And that's the way I kind of think about stuff as well. Let me help somebody out today, because 20 years from now, I might not be in the same situation that I am now. I might need all the help. I might be homeless. I might be broke. So that's the kind of the way that I go about it. I think that more people need to have that mindset of just helping out the next person.
And can you, I want to really paint the picture for people, because again, visually I got to see it, but I want to really paint the picture. What is just an everyday student in your school? What's their everyday like? Like, what do they see? Where do they come from? What's their at home usually like? I mean, we can't speak for everybody, but just in general, what do you? Because they bring that to school, right? Like, some days, like what I saw, they're a lot happy. It was a happy day, but I'm sure there's some days where you're working with a student and they're just bringing home to school, and that's got to be hard. And then you got to know how to cut through that and get to them. So for someone listening, what's an everyday for those kids?
So I can paint a picture real quick. By the time they even get to the arrival door, so by the time they even get to the door at 8 o'clock, I can paint the picture. So I would say a normal, in their community complex, in their public housing building, they can exit out, right? The hallways are gonna smell like urine. That's already a bad start to the day, right? You're gonna have the building, the hallway smelling like marijuana.
Yeah.
You're gonna see broken bottles on the floor. They might walk a couple steps, get to the elevator. They might live on the 13th floor. The elevator is not working.
Yeah.
Right now, as a parent, you might have 3, 4 kids with you. You gotta truck those 3 or 4 kids down the staircases.
Yeah.
Again, with people that are not supposed to be doing what they're doing,
Right.
smoking, drinking.
Right.
Top of the morning doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Selling, paraphernalia and drugs and things like that. So, then they have to go outside.
Yeah.
Go outside. We know New York City, there's ambulances going off.
Yes.
The subways are packed.
Yeah.
People are upset in the morning because it's not a comfortable commute.
Yeah.
So those things are already like the day is already
hard.
Starting off horrible.
Yeah.
By the time they get to the door, I do things again where try to brighten up their day. So like I started this year something called spin the wheel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I bought like a spin the wheel and I have like a prize bin. So when they spin the wheel, they can land on like a prize bin. They can land on getting like fruit snacks. They can land on getting a bag of chips.
Yeah.
They can land on winning like a toy car.
Yeah.
So like whatever they land on, that's how they're gonna start their day. It's gonna start off on a positive note.
Yeah.
Right. So right away they're seeing like Mr. Val come out with his prize bin. They know their day is gonna start off pretty positive.
Yeah.
Not to say that there's some kids who they can still win something, win a prize, but their day's still gonna be bad because you don't know. They might have seen their mom and dad arguing.
Yeah.
Dad might have not came home, or the case may be. Dad might not even be in their life, which is a thing for I'll probably say 50% of our students.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard. It's sad to see what a lot of the kids have to go through from pre-K.
Yeah.
Pre-K to 5th grade in my school.
Yeah.
And it's sad to see what they have to go through. But again, that pushes me more to try and do more for them.
Right.
Because I know that they're missing so much in their life.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm ready to do anything that I need to do to, again, start the day off in a positive
Yeah.
note.
I think there's so much value in, I talk about it all the time, man. In college, we did this practice with our coach, and he would make us talk to somebody that we see every day that we never spoke to.
Right.
So like it'd be like the security guard. You know how campus is. You come on campus, security guards at the gate. You see them every day. You go to the class, but you never really talk to them. And then we started to consciously we had to do it. Not everyone did it. You know how teams are. Some guys do it, some guys. But for some reason, I was like, I'm gonna try this. I'm just gonna start talking to people and asking them how their days going and stuff like that. And those people I was seeing. But specifically, I remember a security guard. And long story short, she was. Before I know she was the meanest person. If you ask me, man, she was so mean. She would never let us get away with nothing. It was like bringing guests in or nothing like that. And we always just like she was so mean. If she at the gate, and it's just But then I talked to her. She was nice. I think her name was Marlene. I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on her name. But what I learned about her was she had 4 kids. 2 of them were special needs. She was a single mom. She was working security at Long Island University. Her kids were going to school. They had 2 of them were going to a completely different school, so she would go to school, drop 2 kids off, get back on the subway, bring her special need kids to a different school, come to work, and then have to go back and go and do that every single day by herself. And that's when you're like, damn. And I'm worried about her not letting me bring an extra friend in or something like that.
You would never have known that if you never
just talk. Yeah, just talk. And it was funny because like I don't know about me, like I don't know if I would actually talk about that. But the feeling I got from her is she was dying to talk about it, and I think probably because she doesn't have like someone to talk to. No one's probably ever asked her because again, we were in Brooklyn, we were in Flatbush. It's fast. Yeah. People are moving. People got problems. People aren't stopping to talk to. So who knows if she has somebody to talk to? And I think just talking to somebody was good for her. Right. She just by the way that she kind of like told me down. That wasn't one talk. That was over time. Because then I started asking about the kids, and then we just get to know more and more. And then it turned our relationship around. She probably would have did anything for me, but I don't know what it was, but I didn't even like it wasn't even about that anymore. Right. Like if a certain rule was the rule, I didn't even push it. Like that's just the rule. I'm not even gonna ask her to do something for me or bend something for me. She just doesn't need that extra to tell you no. Like she's telling 4 kids at home no. Right. She doesn't need to tell a 19-year-old kid that she don't need to do that. Yeah. So to your point, I think understanding what people are going through every day could probably help people be a little bit nicer, just care a little bit more, or just kind of give a little bit more of a break. And for you, because on top of that, you have your own life. You have your own things you're trying to accomplish and trying to do. And then to conform, and for me, it's funny because what I do, like I'm inside people's homes for my business. I'm a service business, and I'm inside people's home. I see them 2 to 3 times a week. I spend an hour with them. I mean, you're one of my best friends, but how much can we talk about every single week, 2 or 3 hours for when I'm inside your home. So that's been a skill for me that I really now appreciate more. It's taught me a lot about communication. It's taught me a lot how to listen. It's taught me a lot to how to actually genuinely care about other people's story.
Yeah.
Because when I was younger, like people would talk, and I would just be in my head like, "Damn, is this almost over? You know, like how much longer we got in this session?" To now, it's the reverse. You know, we probably talk a little bit too much and don't get as much work done. I catch myself doing, but I think just being truly, genuinely interested in other people is a strong suit, and I think it helps.
And I'm sure from that day where you actually committed, like, all right, I'm gonna actually try to talk to this lady.
Yeah.
That probably changed her life.
I
Like
hope
she
so.
might have been waiting for you
Yeah.
every single day just to
I hope
be
so.
like, oh, I can't wait to see Matt to let him know, like, oh,
Yeah.
this happened
Yeah.
from the last time, or this progressed from the last time, this
Yeah.
declined from the last time.
Yeah, I hope so.
I think that's one thing I've learned in life. I see people all the I see people I've looked like they're having a bad day. It's like, hey, how you doing?
Mm-hmm.
They don't answer, they don't answer. That's fine. But
Right.
if they answer, it's like they might have been just waiting to say something to somebody.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I
that's
think those
huge.
things are key in life too.
Yeah, I think, and I think you're lucky because you're put in that situation every day as because it's your job.
Right.
But I think people should really step out of their comfort zone a little bit more and put themselves in those situations. I told this story 1,000 times too, but it's one of my favorite ones. Our coach used to make us right before we leave for Thanksgiving break at college. In baseball, our season is the spring, so we would practice in the fall. And Thanksgiving was kind of that, and we had break. But he used to make us go sleep in a homeless shelter. Again, we were in the middle of New York. Two people would go at a time. And I'll never forget this. We went and we were in the middle of Queens, Jamaica, Queens, in a homeless shelter. I have never experienced anything close to that before that in my life. I come from, middle of New Jersey. We don't have that. And we were in there, and I'll never forget, I was with a kid named Justin Gutsy. And they started coming in around 9, 10 o'clock. And our job was to be the first thing that they saw in the morning, make the coffee, make sure, because they get up and they go out and they got to get to where they're going because they have their way of life. They got to be the first person at this spot or where they're going to go, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in there, man, and there was this old white dude in there. And I'm talking, there's people coming in there that, like, I told Justin, I said, I'm not going to sleep tonight. I'm not sleeping. Because I thought when he said sleep at a homeless shelter, I thought he meant we had a room. It was a big room, and we were all, it was just beds. Cots. And it was just, and we were right there on the couch. And I said, I can't go to sleep in here. And there was this old white dude who talked to us. And it was like written out of a book, man. He was somebody who was married, kids, successful career, made a couple bad decisions, had a disease, he was addicted, and lost everything.
Mm-hmm.
Lost his wife, lost his kids, lost his family, lost his money, and he was in this homeless shelter. And if you would look at him on the street, he told us, he said, if you saw me just 10 years ago, you would know I had it. You would know I'm living good, you know? So now I'm here. So we talked a little bit that night, and I remember thinking, man, that's like that could really happen to anybody who looks like anything. Long story short, we ended up falling asleep. We tried to stay up all night. We ended up falling asleep, and we woke up. I got woken up by like people leaving and the noise. And I remember waking up. I'm like, oh, coach is gonna kill us. We didn't make the coffee or anything. And long story short, the guy we were talking to, he woke up. He saw us sleeping. He went. He made the coffee. He got the donuts. He did everything that we were supposed to do. As him being a homeless man in there, he did it for us and got everything set up while we slept. And everything moved smoothly. And he never even said anything about it. He was in there, and he just said it was great to meet you guys. Thanks for talking, and moved on from there. So like that was a moment to me where I was like, wow, like you just truly never know.
Never know, man.
And I think you learned that in college too, right? Like, how hard was it when you play with how many guys are on a soccer team in college about?
We had 28 on the roster.
And so from everywhere, right?
From everywhere, from Zambia to Germany to Spain.
What was that
Costa
like?
Rica.
Like learning different people from different backgrounds. How'd that help you?
It was great to see what they bring from their culture.
Yeah.
Right. Their jokes are different.
Yeah.
Their playing style is different.
Yeah.
But then you get to take bits and pieces and kind of add that, right? I started from one of a guy from Brazil. He came. His name was Bo. I actually went to the World Cup in 2014 and stayed with him for 2 weeks.
That's awesome.
So
yeah, that's dope.
Just meeting people from different cultures, you start to add in their flavors into your life. And I started making jokes and even like sounding like him with the jokes as well. But from all the people that I've met, like the biggest change I would say would be my friend from Zambia, Sammy. And Sammy came to the United States with like a yellow and a lime green shirt. Like that's what I remember from having like a brown hat.
Yeah.
Like not looking like he was from New Jersey or New York at all.
Yeah.
But his work ethic was by far the greatest from anybody. He just had the confidence that no matter what, like he was going to put the ball in the net. He was a forward. He was a striker. And he ended up by the time he was a junior being like the #1 goal scorer in Division One.
Wow.
That year when we won the NEC Conference Championship. And that was just because of how hard he wanted it. It didn't matter how tired he was. He was going to put his head down and that ball was going to go in the net at the end of the day. So just to see somebody that, again, came from a much tougher environment and still being able to not have family around here, right? Not really having too many friends besides who's on the soccer team now.
Right.
And he was able to accomplish everything that he wanted on the field and off the field. You know, now again, obviously soccer's done. He went pro as well. Had to try with like New York Red Bulls. I think he tore his ACL. Healed it up and then ended up going to play in Romania.
Wow.
I think that team in Romania ended up filing administration, which means that the team just didn't even have enough money to pay the players.
Wow.
So he had to come back. Then he had a child. I think like a year right before he went to Romania.
Yeah.
So he really had to like figure his life out. But again, his work ethic, he's still around. He's living in Midtown now.
Yeah.
He's in like a people's and operations position. So
yeah.
Again, I feel like him just having that hard work and that teamwork has brought him to where he is today as well.
Yeah.
It's great to play the game of soccer. It's not like I know baseball in the United States where everybody's probably from the United States somewhere.
For sure. Yeah.
But with soccer, we know that's an international sport.
Worldwide.
So again, I was able to go to Germany and stay with somebody.
Yeah.
Costa Rica, stay with somebody when I visit these places.
Cool.
So I think again, the game of soccer, even though people used to make fun of me for being black, I've traveled to a lot of countries because of the game of soccer.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have seen half of the places I've gone without playing that game of soccer.
Absolutely.
Parents weren't paying for flights.
Yeah.
They didn't have the money to do that.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't for soccer, I wouldn't have been even where I'm at today either.
Athletics is an avenue, man. It's a way to do it. Yeah, baseball, to your point, maybe some Caribbean countries, maybe DR, maybe like things like that. But a lot of ours was just getting used to people from different parts of this country. A lot of the South, which is different, from here, but for sure. But that's something I want to really tap into, and that's kind of what we talk to. So let's say you're talking to somebody now who is going to make that next step. They're going to play in college, right? Looking back and knowing what you know now, what would you give them as far as advice of, like, let's say certain things to not lose sight of?
Right.
What do you want to make sure that they get the most out of? What would be your recommendation of, like, hey, don't lose sight of this no matter what's going on around you. This is something that you're going to carry with you forever. These things you'll only get to experience as a student athlete. Don't overlook them. Don't let them go over your head. Like, appreciate them. What would be some of those that you would recommend to somebody?
I think most importantly is, like, obviously putting, God and family first, like always, no matter what. Because even looking back, I feel like there was a time, and especially college years, where, like, if I had family events, again, I was in Jersey, family's in Connecticut. I had family's events happening in Connecticut. I probably had the time to go back, but I didn't because I was just so invested in the game or being around my friends that, like, I really didn't talk to my family that much besides my immediate family for basically, 4 years.
Yeah.
So I would say, again, God, family, and then just putting your head down and grinding.
Yeah.
Right. Don't worry if you really want to go after it and be the player that you want to be, whether it's just getting to play Division I, Division II, Division III. Making sure you are out there grinding. Right. Don't make excuses for yourself.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about excuses. You can cry about something today. I might console you, but then after that, I'm not thinking about what you're doing, right? So you got to really want it for yourself.
Yeah.
And I know that's something that I did. Again, even preparing to go to college was I was out there in the morning before work and then after work and then with my team, right? Yeah. I didn't have to do all those things, but I knew where I wanted to go. I knew that I wanted to be the first black person to get an athletic scholarship.
Right.
So I was going to do whatever I needed to do to get that because I felt like if I didn't do it, I was letting down myself realistically.
Yeah.
But I also felt like I was letting down people because people were, again, black people were like making fun of me for playing this sport.
Yeah.
If I didn't make it out, they would have been like, you wasted all this time. Like, what were you doing?
Yeah.
So like I really was busting my ass even more to like make sure I actually met that goal.
Yeah.
So just put your head down and grind. Again, nobody's gonna do it for you. You have to do it for yourself.
Yeah.
But don't leave your family and friends behind while you're doing it as well, because those are the people that you're gonna need especially if your tenure is only college.
Yeah.
Right? Those 4 years are going to go by fast.
Fast, man.
And next thing you know, you don't want to come back and you haven't talked to your family for 4 years.
Yeah.
You haven't talked to friends for 4 years, and you come back to nothing.
Nothing.
And
Yeah.
you have a network. You have nobody, no professional references, nothing.
Right. Right.
So the last thing you're going to need is God and family at the end of the day.
Yeah.
When things are kind of done at that point.
Good point. And then on the student athlete who's a junior or senior now, and they see the end of the road, and like you and like me, we've been playing since you're 4 or 5 years old, and now you're a junior or senior in college, and the writing's on the wall. It's just not. There's no next level for you. I feel like in some of the athletes that we talk to, for sure, there's a fear that comes with that. But how would you recommend somebody start to position your mindset on that next phase? Because for me, I can tell you it was hard. That last game was hard to know, like, all right, this is it. I'm never going to play this again. And it took me some years to reframe my mindset and get something that I was going after. What would you say to that student athlete? Because there's a balance. You still got a job to do. You still got to play. You still got to, if you're on scholarship, you still got to do what you got to do. But time for athletes, I think that's one thing that gets overlooked. We don't have a ton of time. We're general students can go do their internships. They can go meet people. They can go network. Where we're pretty much playing or on the field or in the gym or whatever. So what would be a recommendation to somebody who's seeing the light at the end of the tunnel of the playing career, getting ready to change to the professional career?
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's so much more resources now than when we were going to college.
Yeah.
Now you got social media.
Yeah.
You can probably just reach out to people on Instagram
Definitely.
that you follow, but make sure they're legitimate people. Make sure their business and their knowledge that they're teaching you is legitimate. But I wish I had social media to be able to follow certain people. Again, with the real estate, when I got involved, after meeting with Cesar and the financial real estate guru, I just started following people on Instagram that were talking about this. So now when I'm on Instagram and scrolling, it's literally real estate, right? So my advice would be, if you know for sure 100% like you aren't going to go to that next level, which is pro or semi-pro, you definitely want to start to have conversations, start to read books about whatever you want to get into. Start to try to surround yourself around people in that next industry, whether it's business, whether it's medical, whatever it may be, right? You want to start to surround yourself around those people as much as possible. You can't physically be there. We got Zoom nowadays. There's virtual things nowadays. So there's no excuse nowadays. If you really want it, there's resources for you to go and get it. So I would say you just have to put yourself out there and go and do it.
Yeah.
Or else you're going to be in that situation where if you aren't doing that, you're going to graduate and now you're 10 miles behind because you just never communicated or tried to make these connections with anybody.
Yeah.
So just putting yourself out there.
That's a good point. And I also want to add on to that. I think every student athlete, especially in college, should look at playing a sport as that's your job right now, because it is.
Right.
So I recommend everyone that I talk to, start your LinkedIn page. Or if you're social media, maybe think a little bit about how you're using social media, like you just said. When we were coming up, we had Facebook and it was brand new. Now we were just looking at it before we came on the air. We were just looking at a video of a recruiting trip and how they leverage social media and put the athlete in the school and in the uniform and see what they can do. So I think every student athlete should. This is your job. This is your professional. This is your personal brand. Start to create your resume. Get on LinkedIn. Hey, if you're a captain, put that on there. I'm a captain of a college team or whatever your accomplishments are, because I know it's helped me a lot. When people I've talked to, a lot of people are laid off of sports. Not everyone's going to be a D1 athlete, but 90% of people love sports, and we'll talk about sports. So if you have it there in front of you, you're keeping a live track of all your accomplishments and all the work that you're putting in whatever your job is now. I think that goes a long way too. Don't let those little things, because I had to go back and think about, man, what did I do my junior year? What did I do my sophomore year? What group was I part of? I think every student athlete should think of themselves as a professional and just build your resume and put it out there.
And I would also go and say, don't be shy in meeting. Obviously, when you're younger, right? You're 20 years old. You're 21 years old. You probably feel like you shouldn't be having these type of conversations with somebody that's like 40 and 50 years old.
Yeah.
Right. Or you feel like you don't have the knowledge to keep up with the conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like people that are 40 and 50 years old, once they kind of get to know you, they kind of take you under their wing like a mentor. So at the end of the day, you just have to, again, don't be afraid of that. At the end of the day, if they say no, it's no. That's not the only person that's in that field or in that industry, right? There's a million other people as well. So don't be afraid to have conversations. No question is stupid. Teachers used to say that as a kid and used to be like, I don't believe it. What does that even mean?
Yeah.
as you get to this age now that we're at, I feel like that's true. There is no stupid
No,
question,
yeah,
right? I ask a lot more simple questions
yeah,
than complex questions
I agree
nowadays
with you. Yes,
because I need just a straightforward answer.
yeah,
The complex questions, there's more gray areas. There's more chances for gray areas,
yeah,
which is not a bad thing either.
yeah,
But I'm looking for like a straightforward answer
yeah,
because I know exactly what I need or what I want and the path that I need to take,
yeah,
right? So I just need a straight up answer. I don't need to beat around the bush.
yeah.
So just ask a lot of simple questions,
I
and
love
people
that.
can't really get mad at that
I
either.
love that. And as somebody, like for me, somebody who employs or you have a team, you're a direct report. I think that's really what it switched for me too. Is when I don't know what it is. I just relate to people when they just ask me questions. Like if you're gonna do a job, I'd rather you just come. I'll answer all your questions. And
Right.
then I remember thinking like, man, I wish I just asked more questions. I felt stupid asking questions. Like I should already know the answer for some reason.
Mhm.
And like now with my kids, I preach them just ask the question because once you know the answer, then you know it forever.
Right.
Then you have that knowledge, then you take it and you grow off of it. But if you never ask, you're never going to get that knowledge. You're only hurting yourself.
Yeah.
So ask the questions. And for athletes, I would go to the administration. I don't know, like the way we didn't really talk to our athletic director, or they were like in a different building. But maybe looking back at it, I might have just maybe went and talked and just chopped it up a little bit and just learned and stuff like that. So yeah, I think talking to people is huge. It ties into networking. And leveraging what you're currently doing, and being able to do it. And then for someone who's out of that, right, and they're in their professional career, and maybe they're not totally happy. Like the feeling I get from you, and I don't want to speak for you, but the feeling I get from you is you do love what you're doing.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case for a lot of people. And I think for you, you can correlate it to buying your first real estate property with the fear that comes with that. What about the person who isn't truly happy right now with what they're doing, or they feel like, or they hear your story and they're like, man, like I connect to that. That's what I want to be doing. What would be your recommendation for someone who knows they need to make a change or feels they need to make a change to be happy, to be truly them, but they don't know where to start or they don't know how to do it? What would you say if that person called you up and asked?
I would say if you are truly unhappy and you know that's not where you're going to be for a long term situation, I would say that you need to put more time and energy into the thing that you actually want.
Yeah.
Right. So, say for instance, and sometimes that's going to come with making less money, for instance. Right. So, an example would be, like right now, I am in like a community engagement field. Right. Say if I wasn't happy with that and I wanted to be more in the sports industry. Like I know that's more of my passion, right? For me personally, I would take the risk of possibly trying to cut down hours in my current job in that community engagement and put that allows me to now be able to do more research, make more connections towards the field that I'm actually trying to go to, would be that sports industry. So if you're able to actually do that, I would actually recommend trying to do that, right?
Yeah.
Don't put all of your energy into something that you actually don't have a passion for,
Right.
because time is money at the end of the day. So you're actually wasting time
Definitely.
and energy into something that you actually don't even really care about,
Yeah.
right? So you might as well cut that down a little bit and have more time to try and accomplish what you were trying to do. You actually have a passion for.
Yeah, I love that.
But I know finances comes into play.
Yeah.
You can't really afford to cut hours and do things like that. You kind of have to try and think of a different, solution.
Yeah.
But again, sacrifices got to be made sometime, especially if it's for something that you actually want to do.
Yeah, that's great advice. First thing I want is, where can people connect with you? Where would be the best place for somebody who listens to you, who's listened to this and connects with you? Where could they link up with you? Would it be Instagram? Would it be LinkedIn? Where would somebody who, a student athlete, someone has questions, where can they reach out to you?
So LinkedIn, Valcone Barrett at LinkedIn. Instagram is Top of the League Sports Training.
Okay.
So those would be the top two things. I know we even talk about Top of the League.
Yeah, we didn't even get to top. Well, tell me, run it down, top of the league. That's another entrepreneurial thing, and that's what I love because it's kind of tied to your passion. So run that down a little bit. What is it? What is it about? Top of the league.
So Top of the League is a soccer training company that I started in 2018. So literally right before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And how that name even came about was actually from like college.
Yeah.
All my friends, again, we all played, college soccer. So we all watched the English Premier League. So one of the things we used to all scream out when our teams were playing was like, top of the league, top of the league.
Yeah.
So once it came down like 2018, I'm trying to come up with a company name. I was like, top of the league.
Perfect.
Who doesn't want to be on the top of the league?
Yeah.
You know, so like that's how I ended up, you know, making that name
That's a
official,
dope
making the
brand.
company official.
Yeah.
So I actually started that company basically in Connecticut.
Right.
The first kind of like contracted work that I had was actually in after school programming. I made a connection with while working at Chelsea Piers doing birthday parties.
Yeah.
And I made a connection with a parent who was the owner of basically a consulting company bringing in after school programming
Perfect.
into schools.
Yeah.
So that's how that kind of started. Where I hired a coach. They were doing like fitness classes. So I had like again a coach doing that, and then I was doing private soccer lessons.
Yeah.
I had a huge connection with that because I was coaching in the town, so I knew a majority of the families. So it started off like that, and then the word just kind of started to spread by mouth.
Yeah.
Because I was brought up in that town. Parents knew I played soccer. They knew I was, you know, very professional. They knew what they were going to get. The product was going to be good quality at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then from there, I think the next year I was able to do a soccer camp in Harlem.
All right.
And that was through actually coaching. The job I had at that point was a full-time coaching gig in an
Right.
elementary school, actually in a middle school.
Yeah.
And I met a father who owned his own after-school programming company as well.
Wow. That's
But
perfect.
he also had summer camps.
Yeah.
So he said, hey, like right now we just provide general programming for camps. Like they go on field trips, they do painting and stuff like that. He was like, I want to add in like athletics aspect to it. So I said, you know, I just started my company. It's official. It's LLC.
Mhm.
And he was just like, all right, let's do it this summer. Like, let's start it.
Yeah.
He was like, I'll you know, we can sign the contract, send me an invoice, and do all those things. So
Yeah.
I ended up doing that for 5 years.
Wow.
So
That's a
from
good run.
2018 to 2023,
Yeah.
I was doing elementary age soccer camp in Harlem. The first 2 years, I actually worked it myself and was coaching
Yeah.
in the summer. And then the last 3 years, I was able to hire, you know, coaches,
Yeah.
ex co-workers,
Yeah.
even kids that I had taught in high school. I was able, once they kind of got to college, like their first year, I brought
Come
them
back.
in as a coach as well.
That's dope.
So I was able to give back in that kind of way,
Yeah.
you know, too. So that's how, you know, top of the league has started. I mean, even now, I still do private lessons. You know, when
Yeah.
I can. Obviously, my time is pretty limited.
Yeah.
So the one thing, coaches aren't easy to come by.
Right.
Reliable ones,
Right.
consistent ones that are going to be there and give the same product that parents are
Right.
expecting. So when it's warm weather, if a parent wants to do private lessons, I go out there and I do it.
Yeah.
So I know like your business is a service business. You're thriving with that.
Mhm.
You know, you're doing that. You know, pretty much, you know, full time.
Yeah.
For me, people are like, oh, like, what do you want to do with top of the league? Are you trying to make it the biggest soccer company, say per se in Connecticut on the East Coast? Like, and I can honestly say that I'm happy with where my company is.
Mhm.
I'm not looking to make $100,000 a year
Yeah.
from top of the league.
Yeah.
I just want to still be connected to the game and
Yeah.
still give my knowledge to the youth in
Yeah.
these private lessons with the summer camps.
Yeah.
Especially the ones in Harlem, because again, those kids that without that camp, they're never even going to play that game.
Yeah. So true.
So, you know, for me, it's like I'm not looking to be the best. I just want to be afloat in
Yeah.
regards to that because I have all these other things going on as well where
Yeah.
I just don't have the time to be
Yeah.
having that as a full time job.
Yeah.
But top of the league was great. Is great
Yeah.
still. And it was a great learning lesson to run a business. Nobody ever taught me how to run a business. So,
Well, I was just gonna say that. I mean, you're that's what I hear. You had someone ask, and you had to go find how to fill that.
Right.
You had to hire somebody. You had to go do it. That's hard to do.
Yeah.
That's self-taught business. That's something I can relate to, and I like it a lot. That, and again, that's going around the fear. That's going around because I've seen firsthand where opportunities have knocked the entrepreneurs and fear of like, oh, I can't do that yet, or I don't have the people to do that yet, and that opportunity just goes right by them.
Right.
And you, on the other hand, you just kind of went like, all right, I'll take it, and then went and figured it out.
Yeah.
And then the other thing you said that I really, really hope people, every business is different. And I just talked about this. You know, one of my biggest things when I was first starting was I was comparing myself to everybody else. I was comparing my business to everybody else. Don't compete. Yeah, just don't do it because, like you just said, top of the league is like you love where it's at and where it is right now, and it doesn't have to be $1 million business for you. That's not what that business is for you. Sounds like it's something to stay in touch. Sounds like it's something to help still and to bring the game, spread the game to people. Right. And if that's what it's going to be. So I say that to tell people who are interested in starting a business, just start it.
Yeah.
You don't have to try to, we get in this thing where we think of like how big it can be or is it even worth it. but just start it, because the best businesses are ones that like, because and I keep going back to service, but even I can tell you honestly, even just affecting a small number of people feels good.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to change everybody, but like you said, there might be a kid who never plays the game if you don't do what you do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I had to have a mind shift change as well, even with top of the league.
Yeah.
Because when I started top of the league, I was trying to compare with people that were doing the same thing with as me, even in my own city.
Yeah,
right.
for sure.
So I was like, man, I have to have a sponsor. If I don't have a sponsor, I'm not gonna seem like I'm official.
Yeah.
So I started doing research. Like, again, if you're in high school right now, you might not even know, like, how do you lock in a sponsor?
Right.
I had no idea how to even do that.
Right.
I had to do my research. I just started reaching out, like, hey, I'm, Val Barrett, the owner of Top of the League. I would be, super appreciative if you want to sponsor my sports training company.
Yeah.
I was reaching out to like Under Armours and Nikes.
Yeah.
You're not going to hear back from those people at the level that I was at, especially
Yeah.
in the beginning. I ended up reaching out to a company called Hummel Sports, which is a more of a European soccer brand. So I reached out to them through email, and then they reached out to me like 3 weeks later and sent me basically like a contract of the discounts and the level of sponsorship they were willing to give me.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was like, man, I'm about to take off. I'm gonna go big with this one.
Yeah.
Like this is gonna be full time.
Yeah.
But I would say like after 2 years, I started to realize like, all right, I know I'm not gonna make enough money from top of the league, especially not knowing reliable, consistent coaches. It's like, all right, that's gonna be more of like a summer warm weather thing for me again. But it took me a while to like, boo, you gotta keep this in your head.
Yeah.
You gotta know like this is where it's at for you right now.
Yeah.
10 years, it might just be top of the league.
Yeah.
But I know since 2018 up until this point, top of the league has been where it's at, which, yes, it's been, I wouldn't say stagnant because there's still growth in many ways, whether it's getting to know a kid better or seeing a kid get to the next level farther than I am because of being able to provide him the knowledge or her the knowledge. So definitely had a mind shift with that as well. I don't want it to make it seem like top league I got the sponsor and just took off. Like, no, I thought it was gonna take off.
Yeah.
I'm doing the editing for these videos and these things, and then at some point you realize like, man, is this am I gonna be able to sustain this?
Right.
And I would have to say honestly, with me just myself, absolutely not. But again, you got to know yourself and just believe in yourself, what you can do.
Yeah.
Don't try to compete. Competing with somebody else is gonna drive you in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I think you lose sight of what you do best, and that was what's happening to me.
Yeah.
I would compete, and then I would try to mimic and say, okay, if this is working, then I gotta get in this. I gotta try this. And then it just wasn't authentic. And I think customers and clients can see right through that. They can tell. And then now what my business is just I run it the way that I want to run it.
Right.
And it might not be for everybody. But one, I feel like no one can compare to my business because they're not me. And two, and that's what I love about what I do, is because it's similar to like top of the league. Like when you run a company like that, you have to sell, then you have to meet with that person, produce, and if you don't, you're face to face with them and you get the feedback. So for my business, people pay me a lot of money to do what I do, and I have to face them every single week. I can't lie in my sales pitch. I can't lie about results. I have to deliver, right? So only way I really started to excel on that is just being real. Like, so for me, it was a difference. Like when I first started and I invested into a business, and the CEO would say, just sell, 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 and sell. And I was saying, yeah, you could lose 10 pounds in 30 days. You'll lose it. You'll lose it. So now my sales pitch is totally different. Like a lot of times it's a lot of no's. Like, you know what, we're probably not gonna hit that goal that you're telling me right now, but this is what we'll do to try to get there, and we'll see where it goes, and we'll track it, and we'll make changes when we need to. And those conversations were hard at first, but now I appreciate them. And I think what you went through, like finding a sponsor and doing that, even just that for where top of the league is now, and then all that stuff you learned out of it, I'm sure that changed you as a person
for sure
to be better at what you do every day. So that's the other part of it, man. And I really think everybody should really try something that they're passionate about and just put it out in the world and spread it to people. And I think that's what top of the league is.
Take a risk.
Take a risk.
Gotta take risks.
Yeah, just learn. Just learn from it. It's another way just to learn. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And even on the business, there's, again, like I had an undergraduate degree in business, in business management.
Yeah.
But you're not gonna learn everything in school. You're gonna really learn a majority in the real world, right? So I think at the end of the day, like me even working in finance, for 2 years at Chelsea Piers as well. Um, I was doing a lot of budgeting. I was the payroll manager. So then me starting top of the league, it's like, all right, I know how to pay people,
For
right?
sure. Yeah.
I know how to create invoices.
Yeah.
I know how to create a budget from scratch. So I was able to take that, right?
Right.
I understood the coaching aspect of things because I was coaching from the age of 21
Yeah.
years old. So it's like all these things naturally just came together for
Yeah.
me. So, but it's because of the work that I put in before,
Right.
even knowing that top league was going to even be a thing.
Yeah.
Right. I was just making sure whatever I was doing at that point in my life, I was doing it at 100%
Yeah.
and trying to learn as much as possible because you never know how you're going to be able to utilize that 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. Right.
Yeah.
So again, whatever you're gonna do, just go dive fully into it and really grasp everything.
Yeah.
Right. Ask questions.
Yeah.
Because you just never know when you're gonna be able to utilize it.
Yeah. You're right about that.
Utilize the same skill.
Yeah.
I'm a landlord.
Yeah.
I gotta collect rent. I gotta send receipts.
True.
I gotta communicate. I gotta be a team player. I gotta be able to hear my tenants out.
Yeah.
What the issue is. Do I need to rush and do this right now, or can it hold off for like a week or two?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think again, athletics definitely help with that as well. It's very easy for me to have these conversations.
Yeah.
Whereas my younger self, I would say no, and it's because I was chasing being the soccer player. Right. Which is okay if you know you're going to be down that route. But I wish I kind of had started my mind shift a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Because I might have been a little bit farther. But again, I'm just blessed to be where I'm at today as well.
And I want everyone just to take that. You don't have to be. I mean, I was the same way. I was concentrating on one thing and one thing only, and I felt like I figured out the rest when I got there, the professional world. But maybe make the mind shift now. Maybe start just to think a little differently now. Challenge yourself now. Try something now. Try to start something, and just try. And I think that'll go a long way. But I'm gonna put all that stuff in the bio. I'm gonna put the IG in the bio, the LinkedIn in the bio. I recommend anybody go out and follow. And I can tell you firsthand, you reach out to Boo. As you know, he loves to help. So I'm sure he'll get back to you. Give him some time. He's busy, but follow him. Follow the story. I think it'd be good even just to have check-ins.
Yeah.
Even people would follow us to see where we are today. And then a month or two down the road, we check in and see what's going on from there. But this definitely won't be the last time they hear from you. We got a lot of things going on, and I'm already planning things for you to know about. I'm just gonna bring you along with me. You know what I mean?
I'm here.
That's what it is.
Again, whatever's gonna progress life at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Also, just building a better relationship as well.
Yeah.
Again, the more people you're gonna have, you're good people at the end of the day, right? You're
Yeah.
not even like. Obviously, I met you through one of my close friends.
Yeah.
But I'm appreciative of us being able to have these type of conversations. When we connect, whether it's at a cookout, a birthday party, we can step to the side for even 5 minutes and be, hey, where you at now with this real estate situation that you were talking about, a couple months ago.
Yeah.
So I appreciate those moments as well, and then being able to come onto this platform and spread more knowledge too, bro.
That's what's up, man. Appreciate it.
Till next time, my brother.